Hey, what's happening? Running a little late tonight. Seems like must have been some issues which we use StreamYard to do this show and everything. And StreamYard seems to be having some issues tonight. Hopefully we can keep this thing going all the way through. But it wouldn't let me start it till about 7:03, 7:04, whatever time it was. Not sure what's up with that, but said they were having some issues they were trying to mitigate. Not much of an explanation, but kind of is what it is. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in. Go ahead and get this out of the way from the jump. No show next week. I'm on vacation, so we'll be back Monday, 2 weeks from tonight. I see for some of y'all, football season started today with the new game coming out. For me, it starts tomorrow. We get it's Dabo's big media day, so we get every assistant coach. It's the only time we get to talk, only time of the year we get to talk to guys like Tyler Grisham, CJ Spiller, the Chris Rump, Matt Luke, position coaches. If it's like last year, we'll get Garrett Riley and Wes Goodwin a handful of times throughout the season. Before last season, we used to get the coordinators every week, but they changed that last year. I think we only got them 3 times last year, 3 or 4 times. But position coaches, we only get them, the one time normally throughout the year. So big day there in Clemson tomorrow. Then after that's over, obviously you'll get the head man. Dabo will come out. We'll probably get about an hour with him and on to the ACC kickoff. Right after that, really next week. And then after that, the fall camp will get kicked off into next week. From my understanding, it's going to be the 1st or the 2nd. I'm not sure which day yet. Haven't gotten a schedule yet, but it's supposed to be right there beginning of August. And so football season is really upon us. Matter of fact, talked to a recruit on the phone today, man, and I first thing he says, he's been telling me he's been playing the video game. I asked him who he's playing with. He said Clemson. I can't remember who he played. He played Clemson versus Georgia, since that's who Clemson was opening up with, and can't remember the score, but I think he said it was 2017. Clemson beat them. Don't know if that's a sign of things to come, but we can take it anywhere you want to go, man. Baseball, the Major League Baseball draft is fully underway. Several Clemson players heard their names called today. Even the signee, Chase Harlan, was actually the first one to hear his name called. So doubt we'll be seeing him in a Clemson uniform this year. 2nd round draft pick. Congratulations to him. But yeah, we can take it anywhere you want to go. Any questions you got about the season, anything, recruiting, wherever you want to go, we can do it. I've kind of been doing some fall camp preview stuff on the site, ClemsonInsider.com. I started out with kind of, I think to me, the biggest storyline is going to be center, who wins that job. And then, after that is going to be club, Nick into offense, and, those freshman wide receivers and what kind of impact they have. But for me, man, it really starts up front, particularly as center, man. You do not want to go into that season opener against Georgia and, not have that thing sorted out and not have confidence in the guy you're running out there. Asking me where I'm going on vacation. I am going on a cruise somewhere in Mexico, man. I forget where. I'm just going where the wife tells me to go, to be quite honest. Me and the wife and the kiddos are going, but we're taking a cruise somewhere in Mexico. We're going somewhere in Mexico. I forget where. First vacation I've been on in over a year. And my last one was just for a weekend, and it wasn't much of a vacation because it happened to be on the same weekend as the official visit weekend. So I stayed busy all weekend. I couldn't really do nothing. Going to be a little bit different this time around. So what are I told you what I'm looking at going into fall camp, I don't have much worries about the defense, man. I think the defense going to be loaded again. I think pretty much most of the questions reside on the offensive side of the ball. Again, I said, for me, the biggest one's probably center, and then you go down from there with Cade taking that next step in his development, and probably, hopefully, or if you're a Clemson fan, hopefully a big one. And then those freshman wideouts and the receivers, and all of it kind of trickles down. But for me, it starts with center, man. You got to get that offensive line. If your offensive line's no better than it was a season ago, man, I don't know how much it matters if your quarterback takes a big step, man. How is my friend doing? Got to be a little more specific there, man. I'm not sure which friend you're talking about. See, there you go. See, we got Teddy here. He's already playing the new game. I might be the only one in this group here tonight that will probably never play that game. Yes, they let me have a vacation, and here's a funny story, man. This thing's been scheduled for a long time before I came on board with TCI. My wife was wanting to know when we needed to schedule it, and because she knows, how busy I am, and it doesn't really let up in the summer because of recruiting and stuff. So I told her, I said, just do it sometime in July. I don't really have nothing in July. That's the slowest part of the year for me right now, or the past couple of years. Just do it sometime in July. So she does. She gets it booked and everything. And next thing I know, she had done it on the last weekend, the last full week of July, and it hits me. As soon as I see that's the week she did, I was like, you know what? I bet that's going to be the week of the ACC kickoff. Sure enough, it is. So, I had to, and Robert's been great about it since I already had it scheduled, before I was making the move over to TCI, man. Him and Will and Gavin will keep you covered from Charlotte there, man. Baseball draft. No, I do not foresee Chase Harlan playing for Clemson, man. I saw an interview he did the other day. He pretty much said it was gonna, it's gonna be dependent upon the deal he got. And baseball teams, they could kind of have contact with the guys in the draft, and he had to have given the Dodgers, I think it was that took him today. He had to give that team, an indication that he was going to sign, and for what money. Otherwise, they're not taking him that high and wasting a pick on him. So I think he's probably gone. I thought Tristan Smith would hear his name called earlier than he did. I didn't really have any other. That was about the biggest surprise for me. So I think probably most of the guys that got their names called today are probably going to be gone. I still think there's a possibility Tristan comes back. So we'll see. Tristan's still got 2 years of eligibility left. So if he does come back, it's not like he's going to come back and be a senior and then lose all his leverage. How's Cade looking? Yeah, I can't answer that right now. Hasn't been any practice since the spring, so can't tell you how Cade's looking. I did see him back at camp. If we're just talking about from a physical standpoint, he kind of looks the same to me. I didn't really pay that close attention, though. But we'll get to lay eyes on him, that first week in August, though, and we should have a better idea. Same thing with TJ Moore. There has been no practice yet with TJ, so I can't tell you anything I've heard about TJ Moore in practice. I can tell you this. He got to campus in early May. So that gave him about a month head start on getting into the strength program. So he'll have that, at least a little bit of a leg up from a strength and conditioning standpoint. Probably gives him a little bit more time to start trying to soak up some of the offense, or the playbook. But none of those guys have actually started practicing yet. So saw TJ Moore at camp too, man. Dude looks like he's ready to step on the field right now. Wouldn't shock me if he weighed, 200 pounds or right at it at the big weigh-in when they do that. My starting five on the O-line, I would probably lean towards Linthicum at center, at least for the season opener. He's been around a little bit longer than this Georgia you're opening with. I think Tristan Lee's going to be the left tackle. Miller's going to be the right tackle. The question, you got Tate, Sadler, and Parks, assuming he's going to be 100% healthy, vying for those two guard spots. I'm very curious to see how that shakes out. And I'm very curious to hear what Matt Luke has to say about it tomorrow. And if there's any guys that maybe might move from outside to inside to outside, different O-line coach, maybe he's got a different viewpoint of all those things. But as we sit here today, I think Tristan Lee and Miller are probably the two tackles. And then you got Tate, Sadler inside, and, assuming Parks is 100% healthy, and I don't know that that's a fair assumption to make. We'll see. Then that ought to be a battle, between those three guys for those two guard spots. Chances of signing another O-lineman or two. I fully expect Clemson to target at least one more offensive lineman. They're not going to take two, I doubt. One more. I think the number was always 4, and they would have stretched it to 5 for the right guy, say a Davis Sanders and Hardy Watts. If you could get both those guys, you're not telling either one of them no. But yeah, who it's going to be, I have no idea. We might not know that until we get into the season. If there was a guy that they really liked right now that they had already seen enough of, they'd already offered him. And they saw a bunch of them at camp last month. But the fact that they have not offered anybody yet says they got several guys that are kind of on the radar, and they want to see how they start out their senior seasons, and then they'll go from there. Thoughts. I was waiting on this. Thoughts on the Clemson FSU to Big 12 talk. That's my thoughts on that. I don't know if they're still going on or not, but I find it very convenient that all of this started during Big 12 media days when they are looking to draw some attention to themselves. What better way to draw some attention to yourselves than to leak some stuff to sources out there and get them to start talking about it, no matter how true it is or how untrue it is. It's just a move from the ACC to the Big 12 makes no sense to me. I've seen all the stuff about the private equity, but none of that's, in place yet. To me, I think it's power to or bust for Clemson. I'll tell you this. I am very confident in saying that Clemson's not eyeing. From the Clemson end, they don't have eyes on the Big 12. They got eyes on the Big 10 or the SEC. And I am very confident in saying that. Clarity from the draft, do we begin to see a move by Bakich to find more pitching? Bakich has already attempted to find more pitching. He's just not been able to land any. So I don't know that you see him amp it up any harder. There's been several. They've targeted several guys that they've just not gotten. I have never done a show with a guy named Nicholas. You might have me confused with somebody else there. So it looks like Woods is staying it in for the foreseeable future. I would expect Woods to be at end this season. And I don't know that he's going to be there exclusively. I could see him moving him inside, outside, depending on the situation, the down and distance, those kind of things. And I think I've said this before. I was not a big fan of this move to begin with, because make no mistake, Peter Woods' future is at tackle on the interior. He's not going to play in the NFL. So when you first start hearing about them talking about moving Woods outside, I don't know about that. But then when you start listening to Dabo Swinney's explanation for it, I start thinking about it a little bit more, and the more I think about it, the more I like it, because I don't know that you go out and find a defensive end in the portal that's any better than what Peter Woods is going to give you. They've done something like this before with moving Christian Wilkins outside for a year. Worked pretty well that year. I'm not sitting here saying he was the best pass rusher in the country or anything, but it worked. I still expect A.J. Hoffler to take a huge jump this year. Maybe he's not quite on the same level as a T.J. Parker, but I think that's a guy that's going to work himself into rotation and be on the field a lot. The wild card for me is Darian Mayo. Can he come in here as a summer enrollee? And like T.J. Moore, he's been on campus since early May. T.J. Moore, Darian Mayo, and C.J. Kuba-Taylor. I know those three guys got here in early May, and they've been in the strength and conditioning program, ever since they got here. But Darian was 200, pushing 270 when he got to campus. That guy's physically ready to go. It's just going to be a matter, can he soak it all up in fall camp? And he's going to get some opportunities if he can, and if he can get out there and take advantage of them, and you can get, and you got Hoffler and Mayo up to speed, and those two guys are guys you can depend on, and throw a Cade Denoff in there. Maybe you can start moving Woods inside some. But man, I'm not too worried about Clemson's depth on the interior. I mean, you got guys like K-Parp, who I think is going to have a monster year. Trey Williams, Peyton Page, Vic Burley. If you can keep him healthy, I think he's going to be a name that Clemson fans know extremely well by the end of the season. So I think you got enough guys that you can keep everybody fresh on the interior with Peter Woods playing outside. Seeing a steady drop in recruiting rankings lately, when are you expecting some more commits? Before the end of the summer. The cookout's the last Friday of the month. I think that's the 26th. You got Dylan Alford coming in here, Logan Anderson coming in here. I expect more commitments before the end of the summer, but I don't expect Clemson to take some huge jump in the recruiting rankings. If they do, it'll be temporarily. And you also got Bryce Davis going to announce on Sunday on the 20th. And Clemson's got a much more realistic shot with him than I thought they would have 2 weeks ago. But Clemson's only going to take 18, 19, 20 guys. And when you start looking at everybody else, they're taking 22, 23, 24, 25. It's going to be hard for Clemson to catch a bunch of those guys. I would, personally, if you're looking at those kind of things, I would look at average star rating, and I think they're still inside the top 10 in pretty much every service if you look at that metric. Do you think these lawsuits will be settled by next summer with the ACC? I tend to lean towards thinking that way right now, but we're a long ways off from next summer, man. There's a lot of things that can happen. I do not expect any announcement this summer before the deadline this year. I've always said that I see Clemson being out by 2026, 2027 at the latest. And I still lean towards 2026, which means it would have to be settled by next August if they're going to get out in time for 2026. If it goes on another year and they're not out in 2020 until 2027, I still don't think it hurts them all that much. I just think they need to be out by 2028, 2029. I think they can maintain till about then. Once you get about that far in the future, though, they're going to start falling off dramatically. Just because they're drafted doesn't mean they can come back. Yeah, an underclassman does not have to sign if he's drafted in Major League Baseball. He can choose to come back. I think all those guys that were drafted today, outside of Blake Wright, they've all got eligibility. But eligibility left. Like I said, Tristan Smith got 2 years left. Will Taylor's got a year. Austin Gordon's got another year. But if you just finished your junior year and you got drafted and you turn down what money you're offered to go back to school next year and play your senior year, you lose a lot of your leverage you have when it comes to negotiating your contract, because you can't tell the team that drafts you, hey, you know what, that's not good enough. I'm going to go back to school. The team that drafts you know you pretty much got to take what they offer you. So, again, if there's any of those guys that got drafted today that might come back, I lean towards it being Tristan Smith. I think the other ones are probably gone. Think we'll see or hear about some assistance now that the NCAA allows unrestricted practice and game participation. I rarely hear about Taj Force. I don't know. I don't know how much you're going to hear about them. It'll let them expand their roles some, but I see Taj on the sideline at Clemson games now. I see a bunch of those analysts down there. If I'm not mistaken, Taj is one of the guys with a headset on. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong, but I want to say, yeah. I don't know how much it changes, how much you hear about them, but we'll just have to wait and see. So I think our days of dominance are done. What are your predictions on the Georgia? I don't have a prediction on the Georgia game. I got another month before I have to do that. Dabo's going to say we got 15 ready because that backfired. I think Dabo's a little overly optimistic, and I also think fans read way too much into some of the things he says sometimes. You got to know what to take with a grain of salt and what not to take with a grain of salt. It wasn't just last year that it's almost every year. It's actually 10 or 11 is kind of the number he likes to use if we're talking about offensive linemen. Never works out that way, man. You just got to know to take that stuff with a grain of salt. Most of the things he says are designed, specifically for that locker room, and nothing more, nothing less. People are assuming Parks will just fill in at guard. I'm not too sure about. Well, he does got a bunch of experience playing there. So, there's a reason why people think he can slide right back in. If he's 100% healthy, I don't see why he couldn't slide right back in. He's going to have to, there's two other guys there who are going to want those spots, though. So he's not just going to – seniority's not going to win him the job. Clemson has come through the draft pretty good as far as high school kids. Yeah, I think they've come. I think the one that was at the top of the list is the guy that got taken, and so far so good on the rest of them. The fact that none of the rest got their names called on day two is hopefully a pretty good indicator. Lots of people don't have a clue how good our 2025 class at D-line is going to be with what we could have with Bryce Davis this Sunday. Clemson's defensive line haul is already stacked. You add Bryce Davis to that, and it's, it might be, you can make the argument for it being one of the better ones in the country. But that's kind of what they do year in and year out, where Clemson fell off a little bit, missing on some guys on the offensive side of the ball. Some bad evaluations, guys that just haven't worked out, some maybe too much inexperience on the coaching staff at the same time over the past couple of years, added into some of those misses and bad evaluations. This year is going to be a good test or a good gauge of whether or not they got to head back in the right track. Because I'm not a believer that they're going to, just take some massive jump and be back to national title contenders this year. I don't know. As far as they fell back, I don't know that you can make that jump back in 1 year. Not without rebuilding your roster through the portal. And we know Clemson's not doing that. Could they be 2 years from now? Maybe, possibly. A lot of that's going to hinge on what your quarterback does. Do you think Tate Reynolds could be a two-way baseball and football player? It's extremely difficult for a quarterback to play both sports these days. And I know it's been done. The quarterback at Oklahoma did it, fairly recently. He's more of the exception than the rule. Tate has told me on more than one occasion that he wants to try to do both, at least for his freshman year. Past that, I don't know. I think I said it last week on here. To me, the bigger question is, would Dabo Swinney let his starting quarterback, miss the majority of spring ball? Especially say Tate's going to be the backup. If you needed him to be the backup in 26 or 27 as a freshman or a sophomore, is Dabo Swinney going to let his quarterback that needs those reps miss the majority of spring practice and go play baseball? I don't know. We're still 2 years away from that. But I do know that he believes he can do it, and that's what he wants to do, again, at least for the first year. Think there's a chance that if Mayo comes along fast enough, Woods moves back to tackle. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a possibility. It might depend on what, those other guys are doing, like, behind Capehart and whoever starts alongside him, guys like Page and Trey Williams. And, if Trey Williams can stay healthy, that just makes your defensive line that much better. And then guys like Vic Burley, Stephon Green, I'm probably missing some names in there, but Clemson's 4 or 5 deep, even without Peter Woods on the interior. But if Darian Mayo were to come out and have a season like TJ Parker did last year, possibly. I still think we'll probably see Woods moving inside and outside, and probably for at least the majority of the season. Reasonable expectations for this football team? I think reasonable expectations are competing for a spot in the playoffs since it's been expanded to 12. All you got to do is win the ACC. It's not the easiest schedule, but it's not, the toughest either. I mean, it's it's got some teeth in it, especially over the first few weeks. But it's not some brutal schedule that they can't get by. If you can get your quarterback to take the next step and get that offensive line, to be a little more cohesive under Matt Luke, I think this is a 10-2 team. If not, they might have another 4 losses on deck. But for me, reasonable expectations are competing for a spot in the playoff. I'm not going to go as far as say compete for a national title because I don't think this is a national title team. SEC is probably done taking new teams. Big Ten isn't happening. I'll bet money on that. And Clemson could not survive as an independent. But I would bet money that the SEC is done taking teams. And I don't know where Clemson's going to end up. I don't know if it's going to be the Big Ten or the SEC. You can believe this stuff on Twitter that you're seeing about the schools has to be AAU accredited and all that. Academics ain't playing that big of a role in the next round of expansion. Does that mean Clemson's going to end up in the Big Ten? I don't know. Does that mean they're going to end up in the SEC? I don't know. But the SEC is not done expanding. Neither is the Big Ten. Yeah, Austin Gordon was drafted today in the 4th or 5th round. I forget off the top of my head. Let's see. I want to say it was the 5th. Yeah, it was the 5th round. Number 150 overall by the Reds. Pick's got a slot value of $448,000. Yes, Dabo speaks tomorrow. CV was a 4-star coming out of a small high school. Haven't seen much action from him. So was he possibly overranked, or is he able to help us if needed now? There was at one time he was a 5-star, at least by one service, if I'm remembering that right. It might have been more than that early in the cycle. I can't remember what his actual rating was. Once the cycle ended, I know it was a 4-star, but I'm talking about like his actual overall ranking. He might have been a little overranked. Not going to say overrated, but a little overranked. He was very raw coming out of high school. I always said he was going to need at least a year, maybe 2. From people I talked to, he had a really good spring. But then you watch the spring game and you don't see it. So, for most people, you got to see it to believe it. And Vizina's had 2 spring games, and he's not looked very good in either one. Now, on the other hand, the people that have told me that he's had a good spring or he had a good spring, those are people that I trust. Now, does that mean he's ready to come in and play this year? Absolutely not. I've not had one single person tell me that. So I don't know if he's good. If you absolutely need him to come in and play and help you win a game, I don't know that he's ready to do it. He might need another year. He was that raw, in my opinion. Do you see a scenario where two super conferences are formed in football and more or less professionalized, and all the teams in current SEC and Big Ten wouldn't be included in the super conferences? More or less, football breaks off on its own. Yeah, I do see football breaking off on its own at some point, breaking away from the NCAA and going and doing those things. But I see the teams in the current SEC and Big Ten being included in that. And maybe a few more teams that aren't currently in the SEC and Big Ten, but that number of total teams could probably be as low as 40, 45, and high as 60. Just depends on how it shakes out. But we're going to see a more professionalized deal starting next year. Schools are going to be able to opt into to sharing revenue with players up to, $22 million. Each school is going to get. So we're already there, or at least it's going to start in 2025. I've been saying for a long time that I thought football was going to break off from the NCAA and go do their own thing. And we might be getting there a little faster than I thought we would. When it happens, I don't know, but that writing seems to be on the wall. I believe Clemson and FSU joining the Big 12 once the courts make a decision. I'll tell you this. Clemson and Florida State did not sue to get out so they could go join the Big 12. I can tell you that for a fact. I don't know that a super conference would drag along schools like Vandy and Indiana. That I wasn't really, the question was all the teams in the current SEC and Big Ten wouldn't be included. Maybe I misunderstood it. I'm just saying I don't see all those teams being, not being included. Maybe there's a couple that, don't want to be and choose to go a different route. That's why I say I could see it being as low as 40 teams and as high as 60 teams. All right, I think I said this wrong earlier. Tristan Smith got taken by the Reds in the 5th round. Slot value $448,700. Gordon went in the 4th round, number 110 overall to the Angels. Slot value $662,900. Just saying, if they get out. I can see the Big 12 being interested in them, but we'll see what. Oh, I guarantee you, the Big 12 is interested in them. Otherwise, they're not putting out all these leaks that they have over the past few days from the Big 12 media days. If you're on Twitter and follow some of those guys, man, that's all they've been talking about for 2-3 days now, maybe even longer. If Clemson doesn't know where they're going yet, there's no way in hell any of these reporters know that are pretending like they know. And Clemson doesn't know yet. Look how the way Florida State has played this thing out. They've done a lot of it in the public eye. If they knew where they were going, they'd be beating their chest about that thing by now, the way they have, just going about doing this whole deal. And if they knew where they were going, heck, they might already announce before August 15th. Yeah, right now the Big 12 makes, just a little bit. Right now, last year, if I'm getting this right, I think the ACC actually paid out each ACC it paid out more than the Big 12. Now the Big 12 is going to surpass them, but not by that much. But this is like these guys that are reporting this are assuming that the Big 12 is going to get some big private equity firm invested in them, and I don't know all the details. Not dug deep enough to even find out. And that's gonna make up for the difference in television revenue between the Big 12 and the SEC and Big 10, and that they're gonna pay Clemson and Florida State these big chunks of money to come. The Big 12 teams over there have always been unhappy with Texas receiving an unequal revenue share, and maybe. I don't know any other way they could do it and dish out all that money to Clemson and Florida State without doing some kind of form of unequal distribution of the revenue. And I don't know that those teams over there are going to be on board with that. They were so unhappy with Texas for so long because they always, were paid more than the rest of the guys. Unlike in the ACC and the SEC and the Big Ten, where it's equal distribution. Every team gets the same cut, and they're also talking about selling naming rights I don't know if it's going to be to the league, but getting some big sponsorship deal to help, make up for the gap in television revenue that they could pay Clemson and Florida State. I'm not buying it, man. I'm just not buying it. Not one bit. FSU and Clemson are surprised that Big Ten and SEC aren't showing as much attention. How do you know they're not? Nobody knows. It's just like nobody knew that Oklahoma and Texas were leaving until they knew. People were acting like they know more than they do. Yes, Klubnik, R.J. Mickens, Barrett Carter, and Phil Maffa. Those are the four Clemson are sending to media days. Again, Greg Sankey's not going to tell you, though, if he was. If you think that the SEC is going to sit still while the Big Ten tries to keep expanding a year or two down the road, I mean, it's okay to believe that. I don't. I've got sources that have told me otherwise. Those same sources did tell me that the SEC would probably target North Carolina and Virginia first, but that was also, that was a year ago. There's a lot of things changed between now and then. But those same sources tell me that, and it's more than one, that the SEC is going to expand again. I mean, the commissioner's not going to come out and say that publicly. He's not going to show his hand. But the only one that likes to do that is Yormark over there at the Big 12. So he likes to beat his chest about a lot of things. But Greg Sankey's a guy that's been playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. He's not going to go to the podium and tell you what his plans are. People, I get it, man. People want to know how this thing's going to play out. It's been talked about for so long now, and it's just people are running out of patience with it, and they're ready for it to be over. And I can't stand the fact that we got at least another year of this stuff. I don't think the ACC is even near ready to settle this thing. I think they will eventually, but I don't think they're ready yet. We still got like 4 different court cases going right now at the same time. You got the Florida State versus the ACC, ACC versus Florida State, Clemson versus ACC, ACC versus Clemson. So you got dueling lawsuits, and I think we're in for another year of this. And there's going to be a lot of people that act like they know what's happening. And from my perspective, very few do. And the people at Clemson don't even know. I just don't know how they think anybody else does. Look at recruiting rankings. I think you should go by the quality instead of quantity. Yeah, in my opinion, the quantity part plays too much of a factor when it comes to recruiting rankings. I do think the better gauge is the average star rating. Clemson, ever since Dabo got hired and he took that first class of only 12 guys, and then he took the big class the next year, it kind of set it up where they take smaller class, and then they'll take the big one. They'll take the smallest class, smaller class, then they'll take the big one. It just worked out where they'll take the big one every fourth year. The days of college football having more conferences are over. Yes. As bad as the Big 12 thinks they are going to be on equal footing with the Big 10 and SEC, and maybe they eventually get there. They're not there right now, and they're nowhere close. That's why I think that Clemson and Florida State making these moves in an effort to get to the Big 10, Big 12 are just silly. I don't think I don't even know that they entertain that until the Big 12 has all that private equity stuff in place, the sponsorship stuff in place, and show how they can pay Clemson or Florida State the revenue to make up for the gap that they're facing now. Otherwise, it's a lateral move. And what's the point? Heck, you probably got an easier path in the ACC. And if you're not in 5 years from now, if you're not in the Big 10 or the SEC, your access to the playoffs is going to be limited. You better win your conference because the chances of you getting an at-large bid or at-large bid reside somewhere between slim and none. You got 12 spots. You got, 5 automatic qualifiers, 7 at-large bids. I'll be willing to bet 6 of those 7 go to SEC and Big 10 teams most years, and a lot of years it'll be 7. All the cash SMU raised to pay their way for a while in the ACC, expect they'll be a competitor sooner than later. I don't know. That's a good question. They have absolutely shown they know how to raise some money, though. I don't know how. I just haven't followed them closely enough to know. I'm curious to see what they do in their first year. I think they have a chance to be decent. I'm not saying they got a chance to. I think they got a chance to finish somewhere middle of the pack. And if they do that and they start, they can get some momentum on the recruiting trail using some of that money, and use it with NIL and stuff. Maybe they can. Maybe they can compete. It's not like ACC's all that top heavy. It's possible because they've absolutely got the money. Who do you think will get most of the carries behind Moffitt? That is a good question. I think Keith Adams is kind of firmly entrenched in that backup role right now, but he's kind of the same kind of back as Moffitt. A big bruiser doesn't have that, extra gear so he can hit that, he doesn't have that extra gear that, has that, or he doesn't have that elite level speed. Let's put it that way. I think Jay Haynes has got that. He's the smaller, twitchiest guy. He's got some giddy up. He's got that. Again, he's got that twitch. You keep him healthy, I think he can be a really good change of pace guy. So it'll be interesting to see how those backup or those carries behind Moffitt are divided up between guys like Adams. Because I know they trust Keith Adams more so than they probably do Jarvis Green or Jay Haynes. And maybe David Ajamame is a wild card. I kind of lean towards thinking he's going to redshirt, but it's going to be. I'm anxious to see how that thing shakes out with Keith Adams and Jay Haynes, because in his limited action last year, Jay Haynes showed you he's got that burst. He's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. I think he's going to be a really good change of pace guy. You just got to keep him healthy. He dealt with a couple of injuries last year and it kept him off the field. Just got to hope he can stay healthy. If you have not hit that like button, please do so, man. Hit that subscribe button too. Don't forget, next Monday off, my wife's making me get on the big boat, head to Mexico with no passport. Hell, I might not be back the Monday after that. We might not even get back in this country. She thinks I'm stupid. Appreciate everybody that tuned in, man. Check us out on the site, Clemson Insider. And again, off next Monday. We'll be right back here 2 weeks from now. Thanks, guys.